YouTube, live on Locals. Can you folks there on Locals hear me all right? Chat something at me, or write something at me if you can see me and hear me. I see Ann typing. All right. You can see me too, Ann, I reckon. You folks there on YouTube, hello. Now, I want to say something to you there on YouTube. If you want to enjoy the full live stream, we're going to be talking about some interesting things today. You'll have to catch it on the Locals platform. So we'll talk for a little bit here on both YouTube and Locals, and then I switch over to supporters only, and that's when we can call it the after party really starts, and we can talk about things that are immune to any type of censorship or anything like that. Got my little girl there in school on my other device, so if you hear her talking and her class talking in the background, that's just me keeping a thumb on her. How you doing, Ann? T Spitfire's here. She says, hey. No, the class can't hear me this time. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. But I'm pretty sure I got it on mute. All right, good. Oh, Penny's about to go whale watching. That's interesting. Hello, Alicia. I'm having some kind of glitch. I can't view who's in here until you comment. So once you comment, I can see that you're in here. A couple things I thought we'd talk about today. The word should versus the word could. And then later, I figured we'd talk about 6 things that prevent unhealthy people from experiencing genuine contentment. And I think you'll find that conversation interesting. But before we get started today on the official conversation topics, let me catch up with all of you a little bit and just see what you're up to. Penny, where are you at that you're going to go whale watching? You allowed to tell us? Mm, she's in Hawaii. You're in Hawaii, and yet you're on the live stream with us today. Well, I appreciate that. Are you lying out on the beach right now while you're on the live stream? Or you're out walking? Okay, well, don't run into any light poles or anything like that. Alicia, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Alicia says that her weekend was nice and restful. The weather here has changed, so it's not freezing cold anymore. And I'm starting to get into all my little projects. Um, yeah, I feel like I've got a lot to do. A lot to do. Plus, a lot of last symptom stuff I'm doing. Trying to update a lot of things. I think you guys noticed I updated the logo. I'm trying to update the website. Penny says that I have a nice sunburn. Do I look like I have a sunburn? Maybe I do. I don't know. It might just be the lighting or the camera. I feel pretty white. I used to tan a lot. Go tanning. Man, I'd get so dark. I don't do that no more. Just don't. I used to do it because for several reasons. I was overly concerned about my looks, for one thing. And then the second thing was in the wintertime, I experienced this seasonal melancholy and getting some sun seemed to help that. Well, if you guys don't have anything else to say, let's get started here. Should versus could. As soon as I say, try to eliminate should out of your vocabulary, as soon as I say that to you, you'll catch me saying should. So it's a lot easier said than done. But if you think about all the benefits that come with eliminating or trying your best to eliminate should from your vocabulary, you'll start to see immediate benefits. I was just talking to somebody about this the other night, that it was a girl that I used to run around with, and we hadn't talked in like 13, 14 years, something like that. And so we reconnected. We were just talking about old times, and she'd given up drinking. She was feeling very bad about herself in the past, which she attributed to drinking. And to be honest with you, I never viewed her as a heavy drinker. She's kind of a party animal. I mean, she's a fun person. But I couldn't really think of anything that I would think of as cause for feeling bad about her past. And I told her that because she apologized to me about those times we were hanging out together, and about, like Penny says, it sounds like shame. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And that's kind of the way it's kind of the reason I worded it the way I did. Notice I didn't say that she felt bad about her drinking or about any specific thing that she did. Rather, I said she felt bad about herself, which is shame. Shame, if you want to describe shame very simply, it's anytime you feel bad about yourself. And it's sneaky because it hides behind sometimes things we do. And we mistakenly think that we're feeling bad about something we've done. When we're not feeling bad about the thing we've done, we're in fact feeling bad about ourselves. So just remember that. It's a real easy way, if you're still having a hard time catching yourself when you're experiencing shame. In the moment, just ask yourself, am I feeling bad about myself? If that is the case, well, then that's shame. And it's got at least for me, it's got a very unique and recognizable feel to it. When I feel shame nowadays, I immediately know it's shame just by the way it feels in my body. And then I can start rejecting it. But if you're in doubt, just ask yourself that question. Am I feeling bad about myself right now? You see, so shame takes something we've done and it says, the reason why I was able to do that stupid thing at all is because I am defective. I'm the problem. Shame. Another thing that shame does is that it, my daughter's voice is distracting me. The school is distracting me. Let me turn that down a little bit. So the other thing that shame does is that it reinforces ideas that you already have that you are the problem. So to give you an example, if you walk around feeling like you're just a big old bag of horse papooey, shame will come in and say, you're right, you see, you are a big bag of horse papooey because you did this thing. So that's what I mean about shame hiding behind something we've done. So it can be very simple for us to erroneously think that we're feeling bad about the thing we've done when we're not really. Really what we're doing is we're feeling bad about ourselves. So be careful about that. So anyway, when I was talking to her about this and she's apologizing to me, I said, I can't remember. I can't remember any specifics about why you would necessarily be beating yourself up like this. And that brought us into a conversation about should and could. It's always, almost always, much more constructive to talk about what you could have done or could not have done rather than what you should have done or should not have done. Almost always. And if you sit and you think about this for a while, you'll start to understand why that is. If I look back and I go, I shouldn't have done that thing, what does that do for you? I mean, what is constructive about that? There's nothing constructive about it. That moment in time has already come and gone. And clearly, you're regretful about it. You're either feeling bad about yourself or you're feeling bad about the thing you did. So you're already learning a lesson and you're already trying to resolving to try to do different in the future. So talking about it that way, and really remember when I get nitpicky about the language we use, it's not because of the language itself. Like there's something inherently wrong with the words. What am I really trying to draw your attention to? Your thinking. Our words reveal our true thinking, right? The messages, the thinking, the perspectives that we're really working with. So think about the perspectives that a person is working with when they're sitting around talking about should and should not and shouldn't have and those sorts of things. What's the perspective? The perspective is kind of like this pointless beating oneself up. But now listen to what happens when you change should have or shouldn't have to could have or couldn't have. And this is what I was talking to her about. Yes, you could have not drank as much, but you didn't. And there's no sense in just drowning in that for the rest of your life. Um, you couldn't have done such a thing because you didn't know such and such. You see, it's much more constructive. Um, when I talk to my little girl, like let's say that I make a mistake with my little girl as a parent, and I say to her, honey, I shouldn't have done that thing. Again, it's kind of pointless. It's much more constructive for me to say, honey, I could have avoided doing that thing if I had done this. You see how that it offers a solution. It's a constructive way of looking at the thing. Let's see what Shamala has to say here. Shame stops us from taking responsibility, Shamala says. And that's true. That's true. Everything's external. Everything's external. Everything that comes from shame is external. Your sense of worth is external. Your what you identify as the problem is all external, except for yourself. What I mean is, you blame others for things that you feel about yourself and that you fear about yourself. We're going to talk about that in a little bit when we get into this conversation about 6 things that prevent unhealthy folks from experiencing authentic or genuine contentment. See some typing going on, so let's see what they got to say. I'm gonna have to watch this back later and see how red I look. When you guys come to these live streams, do you guys prepare yourself a tea or something before you come, or is it just kind of like wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, you grab your phone and log on? What happened here? Just waiting to see what you folks have to say. The distracting thing for me in the background is that it's all in Spanish and English, and my brain keeps going into Spanish. And think about this sentence. So I've talked about should and could in the past, you know, that kind of mentality, that kind of thinking. But now think about it in the future. I should change the oil in my car. Compare that with I could change the oil in my car. The I think the really beneficial thing about changing anytime you start to say should into could is that it almost necessitates you following up with how you're going to make that thing happen or how you're going to prevent that thing from happening. So I should get the oil changed in my car. You've just said nothing. You just said nothing. But if you say I could change the oil in my car, the thinking almost immediately has to be followed up with how are you going to go about doing that? I could get the oil changed in my car if I do this and I do this and I do this other thing. If I get on the phone and I make the appointment right now, I could get that oil changed. But should just ends with a cliffhanger almost every time. And it works both ways. It works in the current, present, future, works in the past. I could have avoided hurting my ex-wife so much if I had known what I know now. If I had put in the work then that I've put in now. And now I can forgive myself. But if I just say I should have treated her better, it's just a dead end. You could have, but you didn't. That time is gone. Now it's time to think about constructive. What are you going to do? Penny says that could opens up possibilities versus should, which creates shame. It is kind of like that, yeah. It's kind of a wallowing in getting nowhere. So I'd like to give you that goal. See if you can't start changing from should to could. And it's interesting. Could will make you think a little bit harder about things. Should doesn't make you think. Could really does make you start thinking about how you're going to follow that up. It still looks like some other folks are typing here. I just learned that on locals, and I haven't done it yet, but I just learned on locals that they've extended our time, so we're not limited to an hour anymore. I think we're limited to 2 hours for the live streams. But for the most part, I think we'll stick to 1 hour. I think it's a good, reasonable length of time. Penny says could allows for choices. Yeah. It's nice anytime you come across something simple like that you can get immediate benefits from, right? Because so much of self-improvement deals with huge things, like huge obstacles that you're trying to overcome, and the benefits kind of trickle in slowly, gradually. But every once in a while, there's a thing in emotional health and in emotional self-improvement that you can start implementing and get benefits from immediately. And things that are not hard to do, such as shifting from saying should to could. thing is kind of glitchy today, but if you guys can hear and see me, that's all that matters. Cat, just joining and we'll be in and out, but got the tip. Could is a better way to think of things. Going to implement. All right, good. Nice to see you, Cat. Pretty sure that's short for Kathy. Cat 007. You a James Bond fan? The sound is kind of crackly. Yeah, that's an ongoing problem. I apologize for that. As far as I can tell, there's nothing I can do to change that crackly sound. And it's interesting because I don't have that problem on YouTube or on these other live streaming platforms. It's only on locals. Kat says that Sean Connery was the best Bond. I think most people agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I think that what do you think about Daniel Craig? I thought he started off with a great big bang, and then the movies just got worse and worse from there. See somebody there on YouTube? I just want to let you know that I see you. Thanks for joining. We're going to be on here for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to switch everything over to locals. That's where we're going to have our most important conversation. Penny says Craig is super sexy though. Yeah, my ex-wife used to think. My ex-wife thought so too. Kat says she sticks with the classic movies lately. I love classic movies. I really like Kirk Douglas. I like John Wayne. I just bought a Kirk Douglas movie the other day that I really like. It's called Ace in the Hole. If you ain't seen that, it's worth seeing. He's a reporter with some questionable ethics, and a guy gets trapped in a mine collapse. I think so, or cave collapse. And he kind of milks that situation as long as he can. And I don't want to give away anything, but that's kind of the premise. And it's a nice old black and white movie. I've got my daughter hooked on the old Rod Serling Twilight Zone series. She says she doesn't like things in black and white, and I'm slowly picking away at her to get her to like black and white movies. And I think my way to do that is through Twilight Zone, because she really likes those old Twilight Zone episodes. All right, while you folks are typing, let me get into this conversation about 6 things that prevent unhealthy people from experiencing genuine contentment. Kat says, good for you with your daughter. Some of the best are in black and white. Yeah, it's an art form to itself. You know, when I was doing cartooning, even as technology was making it very easy to color comic strips, you know, in record time, because it used to be before computers and all that, you'd have to do it by hand, and it was a lengthy process. But even after computers come around, I kept doing Monday to Friday in black and white, because I appreciated that art form all on its own. And then on Sunday I would do a big color comic strip. I Love Lucy. That's a good recommendation, Penny. I will see if I can do. Right now what I'm trying to get her hooked on is Dukes of Hazzard. I know that's not black and white, but it's still classic cinema, classic TV. Dukes of Hazzard, the old original Batman animated series, and Twilight Zone. Anne says, I do. What's that mean? I don't like I Love Lucy, Anne says. I saw a very good movie with Nicole Kidman Anne's finger slipped. Yeah, Nicole Kidman and Javier somebody just did a movie called oh, it was an I Love it was an I Love Lucy movie, but about the actors and behind the scenes and everything. It was fantastic. Penny says that she nailed it. Yeah, she did. She really, really did. I mean, I forgot that I was looking at Nicole Kidman while I was watching that. All right, happiness or contentment. These are 6 things that prevent unhealthy people from experiencing the real deal. Anne says every episode is about Lucy screwing up and then having to lie to Ricky in some elaborate way. Yeah, yeah. I grew up in second half of part of the '70s, second half of the '70s, and it was still on TV all the time. That Moonlighters or Honeymooners and other shows like that. Um, Little Rascals, the old black and white Little Rascals. I love those, and if you can get them anywhere and see them nowadays, they still hold up. They're so well made. Bewitched is a great show for girls. Yeah, I had a hard time getting into that. Um, Fall Guy. You guys ever watched Fall Guy? You remember that? One of the best opening songs for a TV show. Number one, Lee Majors. Shamala was a Lee Majors fan. He was a he was a manly dude. By the way, he sang. He's the one who is actually singing the theme song to Fall Guy. I didn't know that. Yeah, $6 million man. Today, can you imagine if they made a $6 million man today? It'd be like one hip replacement. There you go, $6 million. Number one thing keeps people from experiencing genuine contentment. The thing we've been talking about for half a year now, a false understanding of human worth. And I should say a false understanding of the nature of human worth, because remember, there's two value system types, and one is the commercial value system type, and the other is the inherent value system type. And unhealthy people aren't aware of this. They only understand the nature of the commercial value system type, and then they apply that to everything. They apply it to everything. They apply it to themselves, they apply it to their kids, they apply it to everything. Penny says that Lee Majors was abusive to Farrah Fawcett, according to Farrah Fawcett. Uh, yeah, I don't know about that. It wouldn't surprise me. Um, my mom hates Frank Sinatra for the same reason. Feels that he was abusive to all of his women, and I can see it. So think about how a false understanding of human worth completely disallows genuine contentment. You can't live thinking that the worth of human beings applies to the commercial value system applies to human beings and ever experience genuine contentment. Yeah, that's a good point, Penny. Penny says that, and yet, even though my mom doesn't like Sinatra, she's married to a narcissist. Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of things going on there. Denial, um, worrying about what other people are doing, not doing, rather than looking at oneself in an honest way. My neighbor just chose to start mowing, so I'll have to talk over him. But yeah, it's a good point. Let's go to number two. The natural result of having a false understanding of the nature of human value. What is the natural result of that? Well, we've talked about it a lot. It means that you view yourself as not having any worth just on your own. In fact, you're worthless. Any sense of worth has to come from outside of you and be granted to you. So what that means is, in effect, complete dissatisfaction with self. Now think about that. Are you ever going to be able to experience genuine contentment if you're walking around completely dissatisfied with yourself? It's impossible. Because it's like walking around constantly with a toothache or like a pebble in your shoe. You know, there's an underlying irritation there that most unhealthy people are not even consciously aware of, but it's driving them nuts nevertheless, and it's there all the time. That underlying irritation never getting identified, never being addressed and corrected. So that's kind of, you can say that that's number 2, or you can say it's 2 and 3, dissatisfaction with self. Now here's an important one. An inability to control one's environment. Think about that. I bet it applies to every one of you. An inability to control your environment. And really it's deeper than that. It's not only the inability to control one's environment, it's one's unawareness or lack of awareness that that's what they're trying to do. Now, why would that prevent a person from experiencing genuine contentment? Think about how frustrating it is when you are unknowingly or unconsciously trying to control your environment, and the reality is that you can't control your environment. So think about that. The environment is always acting in ways that you don't want it to act. And the frustration is it shouldn't, there's the word should again. It shouldn't be doing that. Now I want you to look out into the world, or think about looking out into the world today, about whatever's driving you nuts. Whatever's driving you nuts. Maybe it's the trans movement. Maybe you're trans. And so you're looking at the thing from the opposite direction. What you perceive as the anger and lack of openness to that lifestyle. So whatever side of the fence you're on in that argument, think about the frustration that comes with you looking at the situation through a lens of shoulds and should nots, and you have no control over it. It's doing what you don't want it to do anyway. Penny says, identify the environment, accept it, if possible, remove or protect yourself from it. Yes, we're going to get into that here in a second, but before we do, you folks there on YouTube, please join us over there on Locals. If you want to know how to join us, you can look here in the information portion of this live stream. I'll tell you, the easiest way to do it is to go to thelastsymptom.locals.com. You can join us over there that way, or download the locals.com app from the App Store. It's pretty slick, and just search for The Last Symptom. We're going to continue this conversation now here just within our tight little knit group. We'd love to have you over there and be a part of that.